Колеги, ми починаємо.
We're starting our next briefing, which is on the year of occupation of Crimea. What should Ukraine do next? Our presenters are Andriy Schekun, coordinator at Euromaidan-Crimea, and Eskender Bariyev, member of Mejlis of the Crimean Tatar people. Good afternoon. I would like to remind you that from the 23rd of February till the 15th of March, there's an action, Crimea is Ukraine, going on. That action was supported by the parliament, and you could observe where there's the banner in the parliament, the photo exhibition about Crimea, and we continued all that with the executive bodies. Yesterday we had at the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine the round table, which was dedicated to the anniversary of occupation of Crimea, what has been done. Unfortunately, the reaction of the executive authorities was very passive. There were very few civil servants. We expected that they would report on what has been done during this year in relation to liberating Crimea, in relation to the problems of people of Crimea on the occupied territory of Ukraine, especially because the problems are growing. On the 9th of March, you all had the chance to observe how people from Crimea who went to commemorate Taras Shevchenko were all arrested, and we do not have any position from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from the administration of the President. And the guys today are under the supervision of the special services of Russian Federation, and they are incriminated different articles. And today there is a court proceedings which will pass the sentence. What should be done in such cases? We have mentioned that many times, and we tell it again. What needs to be done here in the continent? The responsibility should be of the executive authorities. What we offer. We had the Cabinet of Ministers of Crimea, the Verkhovna Rada of Crimea, the representative of the president of in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. Now we have only the representative of the president in Kherson. At the initiative of the public, we wanted to renew the functioning of the Cabinet of Ministers of Crimea, but last year we had the round table at the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, but we were not heard, and they went different way. The Cabinet of Ministers, the Prime Minister of Ukraine issued the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers from the 17th of July 2014 about setting up the state service on the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. Unfortunately, the civil service hasn't been formed yet. So today it's still on paper. That is one of the big problems. And the yesterday's roundtable, we observed how executive authorities are sabotaging the whole process of liberating the Crimea and the occupation of Crimea. Our position is focused on the issue of the free economic zone of Crimea. It's a paradox when on the occupied territory the free economic zone is created. Yesterday we had a big discussion. Unfortunately, this law hasn't been cancelled, and we demand from MPs of Ukraine. That draft was passed by the previous parliament, but we demand that now the measures are taken. And today you can see that there are 300 plus trucks on the border with Crimea. We're feeding the Russian army which occupied Crimea. We have to do something. And this issue is to be resolved quickly so that realistic things are happening. But we shouldn't be helping Russian army. We're helping Russians as well, because our trucks are then transported to Russia via Kerch Gulf and and this free economic zone of Crimea allows Russians to earn a lot of money. One more thing we wanted to emphasize. From the 1st of April in Crimea, the mobilization to the armed forces of Russian Federation starts. The spring recruitment starts. There's no position of our commander-in-chief, of our President Poroshenko, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, as to that recruitment. What should we do in this case? We shouldn't be indifferent to the fact that the citizens of Ukraine tomorrow will have to take weapons into their arms and will be fighting against the people of Ukraine. We would like to emphasize that this policy should be implemented in all the spheres of life of Ukrainians, excluding the civil servants who today should be taking care of the people of Crimea who want probably to change the situation and to liberate the Crimea. That is the third thing. There are also many issues related to Crimean Tatar people. That's the resolution of the Verkhovna Rada, and we demand the law to be passed on the status of the Crimean Tatars. My colleague will talk about that in more detail.
As a co-coordinator on protection of rights of Crimean Tatars, I would like to emphasize that in which state do you have the rights on human rights on in Crimea? Not only in Ukraine, but even outside in the world. We're interested in the mood of Crimeans, among Crimean Tatars, how public psychology, how public mentality is changing, and how they change, the mood is changing in relation to the processes that they are there. So the mood of Crimeans depends not only on economic situation in Russian Federation and in Crimea in particular. First of all, to which extent, how clear state policy of Ukraine towards Crimea. My colleague told you that there are a lot of problems. In difference to Russian Federation, there is no executive body which would be responsible for Crimea. And it's very important that there is a systemic state policy to Crimea. And from that position, we believe that for Crimeans to understand that Ukraine is concerned about them, that in Ukraine we think how to defend their rights, it's very important. And also the second issue, how to turn them back to that family in which they lived. It's very important that the Parliament and the Cabinet of Ministers make certain decisions. And there should be legislative documents and that would regulate these processes. And it was our suggestion since May, and now we continue. There must be legislation that would support development and that would change the mood not only Crimeans but also Russians. That's why we believe that well done diplomatic work about Crimea is not less important than military defense in the east of Ukraine. And also by state policy and decisions, Ukraine should must demonstrate to the world, but also to Crimeans, to Russians who is a must in Crimea. So there should be regulation of the parliament on how to re-establish government in Crimea and Sevastopol. In media, there were these ideas, and unfortunately, in Kherson region, they wanted to take some land and to attach it to Crimea. The main message is to re-establish pro-Ukrainian representative executive bodies in Crimea, because at present there is no bodies of local self-governance, no representative body, I mean the Parliament of Crimea, and there is no executive Council of Ministers of Crimea. So in history, there are a lot of cases, and even in Ukraine, there was such a case when Alyoshkinskaya siege, and once Crimean Han leader gave land to for Ukrainian Cossacks, and that's how they renovated their capabilities. So without creation of territory of administration of Crimea, there will be no real process, because that should be a part of state policy of Ukraine. And we should return Crimea back to Ukraine. Also, the regulation of the parliament to return names, original names, and those names during the Soviet deportation, they changed the names. And when Zhirinovsky told that they are going to rename Crimea to Tavrida, we are thinking about creative decisions, and that regulation will be a part of the law of Ukraine on rights of people who receive their rights and who were victims of deportation, and at the request that they could give back historic names after deportation. Ukrainian parliament has the right to take, because there are no local self-governance bodies and they have no parliament in Crimea. That's why the parliament of Ukraine can return and can show that Ukraine is the state that has goodwill and would like to reestablish historic justice. And after such a decision, all registers of cities, villages, they will be changed, and they will be changed all over the world. And in Crimeans and Russians will see who's the master in Crimea. The next problem, which is important for many thousands of Crimeans, because for several weeks local authorities started to destroy buildings that were built without permissions. And we have the history of 20 years when people were building their houses without their permissions. That's why the Ukraine should provide the land to the deported in those places that were created before repatriation of Russia. And the parliament has all legal powers to take such a decision, because, as I told you, that there is no local self-governance bodies and no representative body, I mean this Parliament of Crimea. That's why such decision, first of all, will be a message to Crimeans that Ukrainian state cares about its citizens. How? In such a way, after those people, and that data is present in the Cabinet of Ministers, and these people will be in the land register of Ukraine. There will be legal owners of their land, of that building. They have on those plots. So destroying local authorities, when they destroy those self-built houses, they will have a problem not just with the Ukrainian state, but with the hundreds, with thousands of families, because then they violated the property law. And these people will have the right to appeal to international courts, and there will be a threat because of the threat to their private ownership. And that's quite a serious issue all over the world. So that's why, in our opinion, such creative approaches, such methods to inform the world, and also to inform Crimeans, for them to feel that, and also Russians, that those who is master in Crimea, that will allow to change the mood of people, and it will allow to change mentality of people, and people should feel that they are not alone with their problems, but they are protected by the state, their own state, and also by international community. That's why it's very important that such systemic public policy is developed together with civil society, and a lot depends on how Ukraine passes quality and timely legislations in order to ease the life of Crimeans and to show that the state cares about those people. Those will be very important processes for people to support the country in which they lived for more than 23 years. In the end, I would like to add all these realistic things could be done with the participation of the civil society.
And basically, we need to establish a specific dialogue with you. We hope that there will be an executive body set up the civil service on Crimea, especially because there's money allocated in the budget for that. And we, for 2 months, we lost 2 months already. It's much already, and we are wasting another month of work and coordination of our activities. And yesterday, during the round table, the people came up with another initiative to set up the public council under the president of Ukraine. And this council should exist under the president of Ukraine, under the cabinet of ministers of Ukraine, because the executive body, especially according to the law on temporarily occupied territory, provides for setting up of such state body within 1 month. And today there's a sabotage against the execution of these laws, and there's a sabotage of another law on IDPs which provides for real mechanisms of creating the state programs to support IDPs within 3 months after publishing the law. And that's concerns not only IDPs from Crimea, but from Donbass. So we don't have a constructive dialogue with the authorities today. Thank you. Mr. Schekun, the question, who now at the state level is working on the issues of Crimea, of the status of IDPs, besides the volunteers? Practically everything's depends on the civil society. We created the information environment and we have a Crimean field mission which functions on the territory of Crimea, and they are defending even these guys who were arrested yesterday. Today there's not a single executive body which would be taking care of people from Crimea on occupied territory and here. Only at the presidential administration we have a department on the responsible for temporary occupied territory of Crimea. There are 2 people working there, and certain things are done by the representative of the presidential administration in Kherson. When they existed in Crimea, they were monitoring how local authorities are observing the legislation. What they are doing now, are they helping? We don't know.
До цього питання. На вашу
the fact that there's no attention paid to that problem. What is the reason why this why it's not done? We would like to hear the representatives of the authorities. They were all invited to our round table. I would like not to answer instead of them, but to hear what their opinion is. But the patience of the civil society is radicalized. We organized roundtables and meetings with the authorities, but now we're ready to go into the streets. It's not just for us, for Crimeans who are here on the continental part of Ukraine, but we are fighting for those people who continue to live on the occupied territory. And I mentioned that yesterday these guys were arrested, but that is happening in religious sphere. There's an offense attack on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Kiev Patriarchy. They are demanding to give the land and the buildings to the workers of Federal Security Service, and also they demand they increase the rent for the premises 600 times. They are attacking everything Ukrainian, but there's no feedback from the state authorities. Where's the foreign, the Minister of Foreign Affairs? Where's the presidential administration or the Security and Defense Council? We need to do that systemically. For that, we need a single executive body to which we could appeal. The situation is that we have nowhere to appeal. Yatsenyuk signed the resolution of July 2014 about setting up this civil service on the affairs of the Republic of Crimea and Sevastopol. Any other questions? You mentioned that the IDPs from Crimea are ready to go into the streets and demand the protection of their rights. But maybe the way out would be putting some time frame, some deadlines to our authorities. When should this executive body, what is the deadline for setting up the state body? All the deadlines are expired. Now the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers is violated. We believe now to address the General Prosecutor's Office to make Mr. Yatsenyuk responsible for not executing his official duties, and also we want to send letters to all executive authorities and we give them the deadline, the 15th of April, if the civil service on the affairs of Republic of Crimea is not set up by the 15th of April, will be picketing the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine.
I would like to add that we, civic activists, we are ready to work and to prepare a draft laws. We are ready to help the government to develop a strategy. But my colleague is right. There is no agency that is responsible for policy development, and first of all, the government should develop that policy. And as we don't have such an agency, then there will be a chaos here, and we will not get results we need. And we prepared proposals, and we developed our visions about that agency, its structure, its functions, what that agency must do, and the issues to deal. But we sent those proposals to the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. Was one more question. How do you comment a public opinion poll that shows that 93% of Crimean Tatars, Crimeans, support that they are part of Russia? I also worked on research, and many times I make presentations in Crimea. Those research that was conducted by DVK, a company that I respect, but this poll is not correct. Here's why. Just imagine, because that was a poll by phone. Just imagine you are called, and they ask you, "What's your attitude to Russian Federation, to Russia, to Ukraine, etc." And even I can tell you, for me, if somebody called me, I would think, who's calling? Who's on the other side of the line? It could be FSB, and why? So, not to have any problem, I will say, I would respond in such a way. Probably read that recently, even in the Crimean Pravda, they wrote that about 13% confirm that they would like to be in Russia, and 66% say they are for broader rights of Crimea as a part of Ukraine. So you can compare these things. But if we speak about generally about public opinion polls and the conditions of this, we have in Crimea, it's impossible to hold a public opinion poll you can rely on as on truth. More questions? I have a question. It's clear the situation is quite critical. If to say, what are the 3 steps the state wants to do to solve the problem of Crimea? In my opinion, they should set up a civic council, and they should sit down at the round table to have a discussion, to have a dialogue, and also they should develop a strategy how to return and how we can liberate Crimea. We have organizations, they developed that strategy, and Maidan of Foreign Affairs, they make presentations, and but there are different views in civic society, but all of us, including Mejlis of Crimean Tatars, there is, by the president, there is a position of a person who represents Crimea. That's not 3 steps. There must be a concept what to do. That's the most important. So dialogue with civic society, and also we should develop the concept. Then it will be clear how to work together, and we'll be guided by that program, and we will implement it. I'd like to add that it's clear that we need to speed up the process, and we should set up the agency that to develop that policy, and they should be responsible for that, and there should be deadlines. So this is one of important points. And secondly, now in Crimea there are some processes because of which many people will be under pressure. So, I mean, destroying their houses. So we believe that political establishment of Ukraine will hear us, and especially MPs. We are ready to communicate. We are ready to discuss these draft laws prepared by us, for them to pass them as soon as possible, because you will see that in a very short time you will see the message and you will see results. Because when we live in Crimea, if we feel all that on ourselves, we hear the question, what's there in Kiev? What do they think about us? What are they doing? So they need to see what they say in Kiev, how they care, and what they're trying to do to defend these people and to defend their rights, including property rights. Tell them that in Kiev we care about them. we are looking forward for them to return to Ukraine, and we'll look forward for you, and we hope that you will have positive